All right, the gang's all still here. We are going to talk about what is keeping us sane or what is making us feel petty this week. Megan, Gailey, lead us off.
I don't know if this has already been recommended, but I loved Pamela, A Love Story. It's the Pam Anderson documentary on Netflix, and it really, a lot of the listeners probably have already been through this, but it really helped for me look back at that specific time of the 90s and the early aughts and just think about how terrible we were to certain women and how certain women's bodies became the entirety of their identity in culture. And it was really fascinating and heartbreaking. And I was someone who did watch the Hulu show, the Pam and Tommy one, and it made me feel really bad that I did that because she was not for it. And it does end up having a happy and hopeful ending. So it encompassed all of the things, the anger, hope, and I think she's just a really sweet, nice mom at the end of the day.
Oh, it wasn't her wedding dress. She has a wedding dress in there that is just like amazing, right? Isn't there like...
I hope it wasn't the one to Kid Rock. Because when her and Tommy got married, she got married in a white bikini on the beach in Cancun.
Okay.
Wow.
That's a choice for sure. That's a choice.
Well, they'd known each other 5 days. So
okay.
She had you know how long a wedding dress takes. You can't get one in Cancun in 5 days.
I mean, the 90s were so fucked up to women. The 90s and into the aughts. Like, in through, like, yeah, it was so bad.
There's just a montage at one point of her on late night shows. And, like, we're talking the best of the best. Like, I'm not even talking all the scumbags. Like, Larry King asking her about her boobs. Like, it's just every single time she's interviewed, it's about her breasts. And it's like she's there promoting a film. Like, it's so crazy. And it is actually, I guess, good to see how far we've come in a pretty short amount of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's weird. It's like the way the freedoms that women have are kind of going down the tubes, but people are nicer to us, I guess. Yeah. In interviews and late night shows. Yeah. So that's the trade-off. Alyssa, Sanity Corner or I Feel Petty this week?
Okay, so it's Sanity Corner. And much like Megan, spent a little time on Netflix. And I was watching the latest season of You. And because I started watching the latest season of You, I didn't watch it on my iPad or my computer. It was on the television, but somehow my social media knew that I was watching You. And I started getting served all of Penn Badgley's social media. And let me tell you something. He is a mensch. He is a social media icon. I could not enjoy anything more than his TikToks. I have watched his Taylor Swift one, which, by the way, now, if you watch it after you watch the whole season of You, you'll actually get what he was doing. And I was like, I felt so in the know. I was like, oh, I fucking get it now, Penn. I get it. And I just thought it was so charming and so funny. And I really, I enjoyed it. And now when I'm in a little bit of a testy mood, I'm like, let's see if he's posted on Instagram. Let's see if he's I literally log on to TikTok once a week, and it's just to see what he's done.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's great. That's a good Sanity Corner brought to you by the Panopticon. That is social media that's watching you all the time. Okay, I've got a petty. It's a really short petty. But if it is a temperature outside that is really unpleasant, don't hold the door open behind you when you enter an establishment. You just, you let, if someone is like literally right behind you and you hold the door to be polite, but don't sit there if they're like 5 steps away, unless they're like struggling with something, don't hold the door open. You're wasting energy, heating the outside, cooling the outside. You gotta like just let the door close. That's the right way to do it. And I have a story that goes along with this, because every time I think about this petty of mine, I think about this story. I was at a restaurant in New York City, an Italian restaurant on Houston Street, and I don't know if it's still there, but it's great. I think it's called Emilio's or Emiliano's or something. Anyway, I was there with a roommate for her birthday, and the roommate's mom was there. And we were sitting at a table near the door. And somebody walks in and just kind of holds the door open because they have like a posse with them. And it is Drake, the singer, Drake. And Zoe Kravitz is with him. And he's just holding the door open, looking real Canadian in like a sweater. He's besweatered. And my roommate's mom turns to me and she was like, "Is that someone important?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's Drake." And she goes, "Well, he's being very rude." And she yelled at him for holding the door open on a cold day. And Drake apologized and closed the door because he knew that he was in the wrong. So, yeah, don't hold the door open when it's freezing outside or when it's really cold outside or unpleasant. Don't want to do that.
Such a Midwestern petty. I like when they have those little, like, you know, in Chicago, they would build them in New York, too. They build, like, winter doors. So there's an outside door, and then there's the regular door, and you can just contain it in that little faux foyer. And I love those. And when you see those coming down, you go, ooh, baby, let's start getting in bikini shape. Like, it's like really that spring has sprung when those fuckers go away.
Right. It's like Easter for people who don't go to church. You're like, here it is. It's time for the seasons to change.
Christ has risen.
Oh, Christ has risen and he's taken down the winter doors. Michaela, are you doing Sanity Corner or I Feel Petty this week?
I'm going to do a quick soundbite from both, if that's okay.
Ooh.
Just
of course,
a quickie. Okay. So what I was going to say is, speaking of Canadians, I just got back from working in England for 4 months. And I, like Alyssa, love all things British. If I could dissolve and come alive, and it would be in an Merchant Ivory film or some Jane Austen film. Like, I'm a huge Anglophile. But Canadians and Brits and anyone in the Commonwealth probably all have this habit of saying absolutely when they mean no. And I just think just say no. You know what I mean? Like if you say, oh, are we going to have coats in this scene? Absolutely. And that means no. And it took me a long time to realize that absolutely meant not a chance. Not a chance. That's not happening. So that's my quick petty. But I want to say as a sanity thing, I want to plug a podcast that I heard on the Ezra Klein show with, I don't know if it's Jillian or Gillian Brandstetter, who's a communication strategist at the American Civil Liberties for women's rights and LGBTQ. And she is, I believe, a trans woman speaking about trans rights. And I learned, you guys, I thought I was an advocate. I thought I was an ally. I identify female, so I'm cisgendered female, so I get to take a lot for granted here. And I have so many friends and family members who are transitioning, and I thought I knew things, and I didn't. And I feel like I have come to learn about gender dysphoria in a way that I didn't totally have a grasp on it before. And if anybody is struggling with any of it, I would highly recommend this podcast, the Ezra Klein. It's called If You Read the GOP's Anti-Trans Policies, You'll See What It Really Wants. And I can't recommend that podcast specifically enough. She was an excellent guest.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, we'll put a link to that in the show notes so our listeners can find that and enrich their base of knowledge for sure. Mm. And that's all the time we have for this week's episode of Hysteria. Megan and Michaela, thank you so much for coming by. Alyssa Mastromonaco, thank you so much for being my ride or die, per usual. Listeners, thank you for tuning in this week. Thank you for tuning in every week. And there will be more Hysteria for you next week.